Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2002. I'm Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com. It is August the 17th. It is 7:45 Eastern Time. It is Wednesday. And back with me once again, of course, is Alex Kozora, fresh from yet another trip out to Saint Vincent College in Latrobe to observe practice. And we're here now to wrap up and recap what he saw earlier in the day. Alex, happy Wednesday and congratulations on being a proud owner of Chidi Iwoma jersey.
I had to fight so many people at camp today to get that jersey. There was just a swarm of people fighting over that. There was a Justin Kerpakis jersey, a Scott Paxson jersey. People were it's been sitting there all camp, and so I'm very happy to pick that up. Probably not worth the price tag, but you got to live a little, right?
It is to you. It's important to you, that's all that matters, right? Yeah, well deserving of that. I can't wait for you to get that framed, and you send a picture out of that for sure. So congratulations on that. One more day left after today, Alex, and camp obviously starting to wind down. Before we move any further, though, let's have you give a shout out to our friends at Touring Plans and Lynn Testa.
Definitely longtime sponsor of the podcast, and cannot thank them for their support enough. That's touringplans.com. If you're planning a trip to Disney, that is the group you want to talk to get the best information on the best rides, the best places to eat, and just basically building your schedule, your itinerary, so you're not stressed out about where to go or what to do or how things work, especially if you're a first-time traveler to Disney. It can be so chaotic and just so much going on. You want to make sure you use all the time you have valuably. And so go to touringplans.com, tell them Steelers Depot sent you, tell them Lynn Testa sent you, and those guys will help you out. And so again, we appreciate their sponsorship throughout our camp coverage. Absolutely, we do.
Okay, Alex, some housekeeping here. We had a new someone new on the post-practice injury report there, and you reported it not long, or really before, I guess, the official practice got started there.
Yeah, unfortunately, Isaiah Loudermilk, the second-year defensive lineman, he tweaked something in individual positional sessions before the first team practice, 11-on-11 session that looked like right side, like he pulled something. Mike Tomlin called it ribs, and so he did not finish after that individual session. Also not working today, Master Teague, who suffered an ankle sprain yesterday. Arthur Millette, who suffered a hamstring pull yesterday. Mike Tomlin deemed that as minor. Alex Highsmith still out with that rib injury, suffered back last Monday. Montrevious Adams remains out with the ankle. Calvin Austin on the field, but did not practice due to that foot injury. Larry Ogunjobi appeared to get the day off. Derek Watt, Marcus Allen, they were limited, so they're making progress and strides there. Miles Killebrew was full, and I did see Anthony Miller around practice today with that big brace on his right shoulder. So it's a right shoulder injury that has put him on injured reserve.
Is ribs the injury du jour this year? Last year it was groins, right?
Right. You got to become a rib doctor nowadays.
Not just need Edmund Nelson, right?
Hey, that was a softball I gave you. Good job.
Yeah, look, at least I'd rather it be ribs than groin, right?
I guess. I mean, it's all injuries the same, but I suppose that one's probably a little quick healer, though Highsmith's been out for a week and a half now. They're probably being a little cautious with him. So hopefully Loudermilk gets back, but he may miss tomorrow.
All right, had one injury settlement this afternoon. That's 2 in 2 days. Today it was T.D. Moultrie got the injury settlement. So that's another one off the injured reserve. We'll know what these injury settlements amounts are probably within the next week or so, and we'll see if any of these other guys that just recently went on IR get any as well. I would imagine they would. All right, as we start to get into it here, let's start with the quarterback position. first and foremost. And there was a new quarterback at camp today. Not new, but one getting reps and all. Tell us a little about a bit about Chris Oladokin's day.
Sure, new to 11-on-11. I should just say as a general statement, today was a very low-key practice. The team was in shells. It was kind of more of a scout team, which you would see more during a regular season week as you prepare for an opponent. So the notes and the evaluation more limited than what they usually are. But Chris Oladokin, one of the big stories of the day, getting his first work in team for the first time all training camp, getting 7 total reps. He got 3 in the one team session and 4 to finish out practice. His first pass was complete to Connor Hayward. Legitimately had a nice throw to Jay Sternberger on a wide stick route for 7-8 yards. And then his last throw of the day was nearly picked off, threw it right at Mark Robinson, who dropped it. So 7 reps, but it's something to look at. I'm happy that it actually happened. Didn't think that it would. So we'll see where that leads tomorrow if he gets any more chances.
And you said more in like a scout team situation, right?
Yeah, specifically for him, those were sessions where Trubisky didn't work at all. It was often, backup offense going against first team defense, things like that. And so it was probably a lot of plays today were very similar. They'd run the same stuff in each session, screens and boots and things like that, which were probably mimicking what they're trying to see and maybe we'll see from Jacksonville. So it kind of has that, again, scout team game plan-ish element to it. But again, it was just good to see Oladokin get a couple of snaps out there.
All right. What about the other 3 quarterbacks? Kenny Pickett still, and Mike Tomlin, in so many words, said he's going to have an elevated role against Jacksonville. We've kind of been talking about that these last several practices, and it seems almost confirmed now that Kenny Pickett will be the second quarterback in the game against the Jaguars. I don't know if we'll know for sure. I would imagine we know for sure when Tomlin meets the media on Thursday there for his press conference there. But tell us about how the quarterbacks performed today.
Yeah, again, evaluation is tough to do. I thought Pickett looked strong overall. His touch, accuracy, just the down-to-down consistency is really elevated for him. And so you've seen a steady upward climb in his play and performance overall, which is, of course, encouraging to see. Had a really good connection with Gunnar Olszewski today, according to my notes. Gunnar finished the day with 6 catches for 85 yards, 5 for 78 came from Kenny Pickett. A couple nice throws. It was a great corner out thrown over Trey Norwood with its own coverage. Norwood's trying to sink and squeeze that corner route, and Pickett throws it over top of him, and Olszewski makes a nice catch along the left sideline. So Olszewski, one of those guys that's had a really solid, consistent camp. I know all the quarterbacks and guys have talked him up and what he could do as a receiver. Obviously, he's fighting for snaps right now, and there's not a clearly defined role for him. But as a guy that we didn't know much about as a receiver, he was a DB at college. He was mainly a return guy. In New England, had 6, 7 career catches.
9, I think.
9, right. Yeah. There's something there with him as a receiver.
All right, good. That's good to know because you never know. You might get in a situation where you might need some snaps from him. I would figure he's going to get some pretty good burn, in the middle of the game against Jacksonville, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I think he'll play a fair amount and probably in the finale as well. So he's basically locked in that roster spot as his team's starting return man and maybe offers a bit more as a receiver than you may think. And again, with Calvin Austin being down, a potential slot guy, I think Olszewski obviously having that slot value, can play outside or inside, but certainly can work inside. That makes me feel a bit better. Claypool, Olszewski may be your top 2 slot guys if Calvin Austin is not available come week 1.
Coming off of that performance the other night, a lot of is it that confidence seemed to be showing some by Pickett these last couple of practices?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's confidence is sometimes a bit subjective and a little tough to tell, but it's just been really consistent, and his accuracy looks good, and things were sped up for him. So all the things that probably tell you he's more confident in terms of being decisive. Actually, there was one play to Gunnar. I think his first completion to Gunnar. It was a would-be sack, but Pickett extends the play, rolls left, points to Gunnar to go downfield to convert his route from short to long, and then puts the ball right on him for a really strong throw over to Monte Casey. So those are probably the confidence types things where you're talking about, quarterbacks directing traffic as the play's going on that you may not have seen from a Kenny Pickett, say day 1, day 2 of training camp, but you're seeing on day 15, day 16 for them of training camp. And so I think you can read the tea leaves pretty clearly and see that confidence and that performance improve.
All right, Mitch and Mason.
Yeah, they were fine overall. I thought Mason's got a really good zip on his throws, and some of those slant routes. It was a slant to Boykin where you want to hit that quick, but there was a defender going to the flat, so the window was closed, and so Rudolph pumped and pulled the ball down, and then fired over the middle and hit Boykin for I think it was 13 or 10 yards or something like that. So Rudolph's looked good, had a good throw down the middle of the field to Cody White on a deep ball for like 32 or 35 yards against Justin Lane. So again, Rudolph has good zip, good velocity, good touch on the more downfield type passes. And Trubisky, more nondescript today. No 7 shots, by the way, so there are no notes there. But all the quarterbacks look good, except, Oladokin looked fine, but the near interception was not the way he wanted to end that day.
I think people are trying to read something into this Oladokin thing. Is there anything to read into that concerning Rudolph?
Yeah, I know some people have said, well, they're trying to see what they have in Oladokin so they can trade Rudolph. Dude's got 7 reps. He's a 7th-round rookie. I don't know how you could say that anything you learn from him today or tomorrow is going to make you, make or break a Rudolph-type deal or not. They're working scout team. It was Trubisky not working in that team session that Oladokin participated in, not Mason Rudolph. So I really would not connect those dots.
Okay. Running back.
Again, on a day where there was no tackling at all. They were in shells and not much contact. It's probably tough to evaluate overall. I will say I had, and I might take the video tomorrow because I saw it too late, but I just like watching what I look for now before team session this late in camp are just the little things, the random stuff that I see that isn't, who's running in what team and things like that. Watching Najee Harris, he never comes down the stairs to start practice. He's always coming in off the side, but I watched him. He put together all the equipment, all the stuff for the running back drills, all the chutes and the ladders and all that kind of stuff that they use. And he's the only guy doing it, and he sets everything up. So for being the Steelers starting running back, one of its biggest name, most well-known players on this team, to have a guy like that sets up all the equipment for those guys to go through drills is pretty impressive to me. Now, maybe they tell him to do it. I don't know for sure, but you talk about leadership and what that looks like. There's been so many stories and interviews and questions asked about Najee Harris, how he's going to become a leader. And he's not a real vocal, rah-rah kind of guy, but leadership is doing things like no job is too big or too small for me. I'm not above anything. I'm going to set up the equipment for the drill. So I appreciate watching Najee Harris do those kind of little things for the benefit of other guys. And I think that's really cool to see.
Agreed. Najee, after practice, made it clear that he's planning on playing in at least one of these preseason games. It sounds like he's not going to play maybe against Jacksonville. So, but he seemed pretty set on at least wanting a few reps in a preseason game before this thing ends. So we'll see. How much work is he doing right now in team stuff and all?
He's been running, obviously, first team, probably getting a couple of reps there. Had, 5 or 6 carries and a couple of catches today. Is he really going to play in a finale where no other starters will play? He may want it. If he does, I'll give him a snap and tell him, there you go, and then get to the bench because I really would prefer him not working this summer.
He sounds like he wants to get a couple of snaps in. So
if he's going to do it this weekend and then bench him for the finale. That would make the most amount of sense to me. He's been healthy enough to work again and be ready for this weekend's game.
Of course, he did kind of caution that it's Mike Tomlin's call, and obviously that kind of thing. So we'll see how it goes. Was Jaylen Warren running ahead of McFarland today?
They kind of split things. Generally, I would probably say yes, but there was so much rotation today and some of the scout team stuff with backups coming in first. It was more difficult to tell, but I've seen Warren ahead of Snell the last 2 days. How much to read into that? Certainly paying attention to that. I don't want to make any conclusions yet, but Warren is getting time and seeing elevated action.
All right, Mateo Durant's out of the race for all practical purposes, right?
Yeah, he's missed some time, doesn't have the size and power the team looks for. His hands haven't been maybe quite as good as I thought he would. Pass pro is certainly a difficult, spot for him. Maybe practice squad. We'll see what happens with Master Teague and that ankle injury. Teague's outplayed him overall, and I think he would have the inside track, but we'll see where health is the rest of the way. But Durant busts off one big run in a preseason game, and that conversation may shift a little bit. But in terms of 53, he is not in that conversation. It will not be in that conversation.
So if Najee does not play against the Jaguars, then it's going to be McFarland, Benny Snell, and Warren, right?
Correct. Durant will suit up and he may play late, but his snaps will be very limited.
Right. Okay. Tight end.
I've seen more. I've seen more from Pat Frymuth and some more middle of the field type plays. I think
Good.
he will be able to be more. He had a 22-yard catch today down the middle of the field, down the seam. I saw that yesterday or 2 days ago as well. And so obviously he's going to be that security blanket, a lot of option routes, hank routes, things like that. But I think you will see them throw the middle of the field more and hit Frymuth on some of those seams and things like that. So that'll be good for his yards per catch.
Yeah, absolutely, and he needs to up that number by a couple of yards if all possible in 2022. Gentry doing anything?
Had a couple of catches today, but it's been a pretty quiet camp for Zach Gentry overall. So didn't really learn anything new about him. Maybe a little bit early on in camp, but the last 2.5 weeks have been almost nothing to note there.
All right, wide receiver, you already hit on Gunner. What else?
Yeah, Gunner was really the big name to talk about today. Beyond that, it was pretty quiet from the starters, and Johnson and Claypool and Pickens, they didn't do a whole lot. There was no 1v1 type drills today, so it was a lot of team sessions, a lot of scout team kind of stuff, a lot of boots and crossers that Olszewski really benefited from overall. So don't really have a whole lot to note there.
All right, offensive line. You had a terrible take today about James Daniels.
Yeah, just my concern with him. When I mentioned on the regular episode of the podcast this morning, the one guy I was hoping and expecting to not be concerned about this summer was James Daniels. And now I'm concerned about James Daniels. Today it was too hard to evaluate, how good or bad of a day he was. It was probably just fine given the non-contact nature of it all. But that's certainly one guy that I thought I would feel a lot more comfortable and confident in after, one game.
Okay, and Dotson running ahead of Green or no?
They're still split in time. It's been a really even split overall. I think Green got the first team reps today, but again, that has been a basically 50-50 split.
Okay. Anything else to add on the offensive side of the football?
Connor Hayward did have one nice catch down the seam as well for, 15 plus yards, a good hands catch. So the hands may be a little inconsistent on him, but he's certainly a guy that can pluck the ball away from his frame. We saw that at Michigan State and have seen that both in the game and throughout camp as well.
All right, defensive side of football, defensive line, Ogunjobi day of rest?
Yeah, it appeared to be the day off. He seemed fine, but he's getting one of those veteran days off. Latimer, like I said, missed time with the injury. Alu worked full today. Weirdly, and this is just random things that I happened to catch, there was one play very early in team where Cam Hayward was the left defensive end as opposed to the right defensive end in the Steelers base 3-4 defense. Only time I saw it today, no idea if that was them just screwing around or there was a look or whatever the reason was, but just noted that today.
All right. Outside linebacker.
It's been a quieter group overall. There's some guys that are, I've mentioned this before, but high effort guys, Derek Tuska, Delonte Scott, but they're really subpar kind of athletes, and you wonder where exactly their ceiling is. And so no one really sticking out too much. Again, it's a tough day to evaluate some of that stuff. Mike Tomlin calls Hamilka Rashed Ham. That's all I got for you. He calls him Ham probably because he doesn't know how to pronounce his name. Like I don't know how to pronounce his name. So that's what Mike Tomlin calls Ham.
All right. Any of those backup guys pushing any guys like Derek Tuska and Avery at all?
I mean, I think a guy like Rondell Carter's got a pretty big lower half, a fairly explosive guy. Delonte Scott's had a good camp overall. It's probably been quieter this week compared to where he was the previous and past 2 weeks, but I still think Tuska's in that driver's seat to be the number 4 outside linebacker.
All right, inside linebacker. You got anything positive for me today on Devin Bush?
I thought actually it was a pretty good day for Devin Bush. And again, it's a pretty controlled environment, but he blew up a screen and had a couple of good run stuffs overall. So I know he had the morning show being pretty critical of Devin Bush, but I thought, his camp has not been bad. And Brian Flores went to bat for him today. I saw that. It's not been as good as it needs to be for a guy with the talent that Devin Bush has.
All right.
Mark Robinson was pretty all around the ball today.
Right.
Again, it's tough to evaluate, but I just in my notes, how many times? Probably a half dozen times today. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 tackles and a near interception today. That's a pretty good day to work, I think.
All right. What about Buddy?
Less eventful, I guess. Don't think I have him in my notes a ton, but again, just a lot of reps for those guys. Overall, I have one really weird thought on Buddy Johnson, and maybe this is just totally wrong or totally random. He kind of runs weird. He kind of has a weird gait, the way that he runs. I don't know how to explain it, but he just doesn't. He's kind of a choppy type of runner.
All right. Let's see. And you said Marcus Allen, you think he's close?
Yeah, he was limited today. He worked in individual sessions in the stretch line, and he moved around pretty good. So we'll see if he gets all the way back tomorrow. It might take a couple of days for him to get fully back, but there's an outside chance he'll play in the Jaguars game.
All right, and that I think takes us to the secondary now.
Levi Wallace made some plays. Again, it's a session where you're not really going full contact and everyone's trying to stay on their feet, but he had a good breakup on a slant to Miles Boykin. So, he's not, they've stopped that rotation with Witherspoon, and Wallace has really been more clear second team, but also in some of their dime stuff and in some of the passing situations when they go nickel, it'll be Wallace at right corner and Witherspoon at left corner and Cam Sutton in the slot. So I still expect that to be the case week one in third down and dime packages, nickel and a half end of game type stuff. You're going to have Wallace out there. But I think maybe their nickel defense on early downs, you may see Millette on the field in the slot with Sutton and Witherspoon on the outside. So, I would say overall, probably a bit of a disappointing camp for Levi Wallace.
All right. With Millette, what's happening in Millette's absence right now?
In terms of who's running slots and things like that. Let's see. Cam Sutton, there was a lot of passing down work today, so Cam Sutton saw a lot of time in the slot. Trey Norwood seeing time in the slot, so he's probably kind of becoming the replacement for Millette with him being out with that hamstring injury. And then Carlin Splatell also seeing slot and dime work. But I would probably say right now it's been Sutton and Norwood were your two starting slot corners today.
All right. Anything else to add with the secondary?
On a day like this, I'm hesitant to make any sort of declarations or reading too much into things, but there were a couple of snaps where it was DeMonte Casey and Minkah Fitzpatrick as the first team safeties, and there was kind of a bit of rotation between Casey and Terrell Edmonds. I mean, they would switch out snaps and things like that. So on scout team day, you're never quite sure what to make of it, but I just did note that today that there was sometimes where it was Casey and Minkah instead of Minkah and Edmonds on the field.
Almost a catch your breath kind of day.
Yeah, I think it was more of definitely a slower pace. So I know there isn't a whole lot for me to report, but I'd be lying to you if I really said there was a ton to evaluate today. It was scout team stuff. It was very much like an in-season type of practice. We'll see what tomorrow is. We'll see the teams in pads. I don't know how Tomlin's going to handle the last day of camp. They can be in pads because they were in shells today. So we'll see how Tomlin approaches it, but hopefully a bit more substance to report tomorrow.
Do you remember back from the past couple of camps what the last day was like?
I can check, and while I do that, I should mention new center Ryan McCollum had 2 bot snaps with Mason Rudolph today, so Tomlin probably not loving that. In fact, I know he didn't because he got pretty pissed the second time around to make guys line up again really quickly and get the ball snapped again. Let's see if the internet wants to load here. Does not want to load for some reason all of a sudden. So
how's your car handling things right now?
It's good. Yeah, she's doing really well. Let's see where are we at. I just got the page up here. I can scroll down. Yeah, I don't know how Tomlin approached things last year. Last day of camp, August 18th. Oh, it was August 18th last year. So it'll be August 18th this year as well. They were in pads, but no contact and a pretty light day of work, according to my notes. So.
All right. And
might be in pads.
That was at Heinz or at the stadium formerly known
as Heinz Field, Acrisure Stadium. Yes.
All right. How about I forgot to get and I made you do it during a modified one during the morning podcast this morning. I forgot to get your overreaction of the day. Give me a good overreaction of the day. And no, Chris Oladokin cannot be. Oladokin cannot be part of it. Give me a solid overreaction of the day, Alex.
On a day like this, it is genuinely tough for me to come up with one. Gunnar Olszewski, a much better receiver than I think what most people thought, and he may have a bigger role in this offense, especially given the Calvin Austin injury in the slot for just his ability to get open and that kind of stuff. Just being a guy that seems to be open quite a bit, and Kenny Pickett in particular really likes throwing to Gunnar Olszewski.
How about him in contested catches? Much of that? Gunner?
Haven't seen it as much as, say, a George Pickens. Sometimes that slot role, you get sometimes fewer contested situations. But again, on that throw I mentioned earlier that Pickett directed Olszewski vertically. I mean, Casey had good coverage, had good positioning and leverage, and it was a really well thrown ball by Pickett, but Olszewski kind of plucked it off of DeMonte Casey. And Olszewski's a tough guy. There was an RPO earlier this year over the middle, and he got popped really good and made the catch. And so the dude, I think Mike Tomlin praised his toughness today. He's a good old Southern boy, Texas kid. I mean, he's tough, and the heat doesn't bother him, but stuff like that. So it's been a consistent camp, very good start to finish. It's been no fading, no waning. You see that pretty commonly with receivers. Olszewski's been basically the same dude day 1 to day whatever we're on day 15.
And obviously the conditioning of his is supreme, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's got a chip on his shoulder. You're a Texas kid that played at Bemidji State or whatever it's called, that played DB. Now you're a receiver and you're trying to prove yourself. So he's got all the chips on his shoulder and all the heart in the world. So it's been a good camp for him.
How about any special team stuff today? Any punting periods or anything?
They did some kicking. They did some just circuit drills and coverage work, but no punting. Not a ton to really note there. Blaine Stewart's pretty active in those sessions, and he's pretty much Danny Smith's assistant special teams coach.
All right. Anything else to add I think we're going to be under 30 minutes in this one.
Yeah, like I said, it's a pretty light day overall. We'll see how tomorrow looks. Really good weather if anyone cares about that. The atmosphere overall at camp has been excellent. They brought in food trucks, and those have been pretty popular overall. The crowds have been excellent. The rain, for the most part, besides a couple of days, has kind of held off. So it's been a good week of camp.
All right. Thursday will be your final day out there for 2022. Earlier, before you get out there, Mike Tomlin will hold a press conference to help, kind of preview the game Saturday night against the Jaguars. So I imagine you'll be doing a lot of tweeting and a lot of picture taking out there on Thursday, correct?
Yep. Hopefully a bit more to talk about, but should be a good last day. We'll come back tomorrow and cover it all.
We will wrap it all up Thursday night there. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for following. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Got an ad-free version of the site. SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button and follow the directions that way there. So until Thursday night, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast, a special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2022 with Dave and Alex. Good night, and thank you for listening.